what is next for me? And I'll be honest, since I started Run Breiter, there has not been a period where I had a race either signed up for or in my mind some sort of game plan towards a next race, a next training series. But I do want to open up to the community here today because there is going to be a big life change happening for me in the next month and a half.
Hello everyone, this is Sam Breiter and I'm the founder of Run Breiter, a digital running community meant to educate, motivate, and entertain beginner runners and runners who struggle with consistency, see all the mental and physical benefits running provides. I've been coaching runners both in person and digitally for 5 years, but have been running both competitively and casually for 14 years. The Run Breiter podcast gives me the opportunity to bring on guests to share their running journeys and running advice. I assure you, listening to this podcast will make you want to run and follow your journey, as the conversations in this episode will send signals to your mind that even when it's cold, you're sore, tired, or going through something, that a run is still well worth doing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode in the Run Breiter podcast. This is episode number 42, and today we are going to be doing a fully solo episode. It's been a little bit, but we've been doing a lot of things. We got a lot going on in life, some things to share and talk about, and value to give as always. So first, I wanted to kick things off with talking about the Jersey City half marathon that I just recently did. And I'm going to share some of what I learned from this training series with everyone throughout this podcast and give you some great action items to walk away with the next time that you train for a half marathon or a running race in general. So after doing 4 marathons over the last year, I decided to take a step back as far as the distance and really focus on competition again and speed, building that back up. Because a lot of the marathons that I had been doing, I definitely felt a little burnt out about because of how close those marathons were together. But I told myself, okay, we're going to take the next 2.5 months to really just focus on building back that speed and getting towards a time that is going to ultimately set myself up for success for my next marathon, where I will try to break a 3-hour marathon, is the hopes. So yeah, after my previous marathon, which was the Austin Marathon, I took a week off. I got right into training and built up my mileage. Now, my mileage throughout this training, it didn't get crazy high. And I want to put this into perspective for people, because I think oftentimes when training for any race, people don't really know the proper amount of mileage that they should be training for. And one thing I want to be keen on here is the fact that the mileage that is going to work for me and for you and someone else is going to be completely different. And it's going to all be based on your specific goals with running, as well as understanding how your body adapts to running a certain level of mileage in a given week. You don't want to overtrain, but you also don't want to undertrain in a sense. So there is a little bit of trial and error that comes with it. But for me, throughout this training, the highest mileage that I even got throughout this training, believe it or not, was 37 miles in a given week, which if you were tracking what I was doing through my marathon builds, I could see myself getting as high as a 55 mile week. But you got to think about it. A half marathon, it's half the distance. So I don't think it equates to running half the mileage. It might, but for me, I don't see it as that way. But what is important is that different to marathon training is the intensity of the speed workouts that I was doing. They weren't as long, but the paces were certainly faster because I had a goal of running a faster time. I still go with, and I highly recommend you still continue an 80-20 split of 80% easy runs for a half marathon and 20% running at race pace or quicker. Typically, I like a 10-10 split, where 10% of it is a long run in a given week, where you are going to go ahead and run a few of those miles at your goal race pace, and then also throwing in 1 to 2 speed workouts in that week, depending on how often you run. I'd say if you're only running 4 or 5 days a week, you would only need 1 speed workout. If you're running more like 6 or 7, you might want to have 2 speed workouts within that specific week. But yeah, I mean, as far as the workouts that I was doing, I knew this was a fully flat race. So I kept hill workouts at a minimum, but I was doing threshold runs in the range of 20 to 30 minutes, where my pace was a little bit slower than my goal half marathon pace. I had the goal of running at 6:30 pace. My thresholds were about 6:45 pace. And then as far as interval workouts, I had intervals as short as 200-meter sprints. And just so you know, for intervals, that first number is the quantity of that given distance. And then that by 200, what I mean by that is that I ran 200 meters 16 times. And in between each interval, I do a recovery, which can range per workout. So as I said, 16 by 200 meters, I would have 200-meter recovery in between each. I did a workout where I did 12 by 400-meter intervals. I did a workout which was 8 by 800-meter intervals and a 5 by 1600-meter interval workout, as well as a 3 by 1600-meter interval workout throughout the training series. And like I said, I incorporated my long runs with half marathon pace miles. So for example, I did a couple runs where I had one run, I ran 8 miles, and 4 miles within that long run were at my half marathon pace. I did a 6-mile run with 2 miles at half marathon pace, a 10-mile one with 5 miles at half marathon pace. I think you kind of get it, but that's the variety that I would have incorporated in this training. Strength training is something that I'm always advocating throughout training. And the breakdown for my sessions in the gym is I would do a dedicated chest day with abs. I would do a bicep back day. I would do a tricep and ab day. And then I would do a shoulder day as well as a leg day. And sometimes I would combine legs and shoulders in the same day. Other times I would split it up depending on my availability for the gym. So for perspective, I was going to the gym probably about 4 to 5 days a week. And so I would complete that full cycle typically in about a week, maybe add an extra day or two. And then twice a week, there was some level of cross training incorporated where I would hit maybe 20 minutes on the bike or 10 laps or so in the pool. Now in past training series, I have done a bit more cross training, but I wanted to experiment with a little less cross training and really just focus on my running. But honestly, throughout this training series, I didn't really have a lot of time. Things have been really busy with my work, my personal life. And I'll talk about something that also has kept me busy here in a moment. So because of that, I really wanted to make sure that the race was my focus. Getting the fastest time I possibly could in the half marathon was my focus. So cross training definitely was something that I didn't do as much of, but I don't think it really affected me too much, in my opinion. And for all those runs, I always felt good. I didn't really deal with a lot of soreness through the training. And with cross training, I think sometimes depending on the level of intensity that you're doing, could provide a level of soreness. Now, if you're cross training and you're just doing really slow movements on the bike, really slow movements in the pool, or whatever other cross training activities you may like, I don't think you're going to have to really worry about soreness. But sometimes when I do cross train, I do build up some high levels of intensity. And then the next day, my running can be affected because I'm not consistent with it. I think if I was consistent with it, I wouldn't see that level of soreness, but just something to keep in mind if you want to implement cross training into your routine. So really at the beginning, keep it nice and easy, and you can build the intensity over time, but it's also going to be based on your goal. If you're running for time, you might want to keep it, you definitely want to keep that cross training on the lower level of intensity. But if you're just training for running because you want to be in the best shape possible, well, swimming hard laps in the pool or biking aggressively, I fully support that. That's going to help your journey of getting in the best possible shape. It's going to mix up the fitness. It's going to keep things fun. So definitely go for it if that's what your goal is. But yeah, like I said, that was the training. It was 10 weeks. And let's note, I had some fun. I had a bachelor party. I enjoyed time with friends living in New York City and corporate events where there was drinking, unhealthy food. But overall, I kept to a pretty strong routine. And I will say it wasn't the most structured training that I've ever had by any means, but it definitely was good enough. And what you got to realize with running, you can enjoy some outside things in life along with running and still see an improved performance if you're keeping healthy, if you're keeping consistent. Obviously, if you want that maximum level of performance, drinking alcohol or eating fried food, it's not going to be a way to do it. But for someone who just wants to have a gradual improvement over time in life with running, and you're not training for the Olympics, you can have some fun on the side with it, which I definitely encourage because you don't want to burn yourself out mentally. I've been there where I put all my eggs in the running basket and I forget about the other fun parts about life. But what I really have enjoyed is just having that balance of loving running and not worrying so much about every single aspect of my training because I know that I want to be running for my whole life and I don't want to resent running. So that's something that this training, I think I did a really good job of, is simply finding that balance of keeping that structure within my training, but still doing things that I enjoy. And yeah, I had a fairly good result. So the race in Jersey City, one thing to note, it was a pouring rain-filled day. The race started at 7 a.m. We showed up in Jersey around 6, and yeah, puddles everywhere. Everyone was soaked from top to bottom. It was quite the experience as far as the rain. I don't think I've seen so much rain in a race in my life, at least before the race. When the race actually started, the rain definitely calmed down, but that was something definitely running in soaking wet clothes and shoes that had puddles of water in it made it more difficult. But yeah, this was the first time they actually held the event in Jersey City. It was a fully flat race as far as how it was advertised. There were a couple hills, but nothing bizarre. It was definitely a solid course. We got to venture around Jersey City and see some different parts of the area, which I did definitely enjoy. I would say from the organization standpoint of the race, it wasn't the best. It was their first year, so I'm going to give them some slack on it. There was about 6,500 runners, split pretty 50-50 between half marathon runners and full marathon, which I was kind of surprised about. Normally, there's definitely a lot more half runners, but in New York, the people here are wild. They love their marathon. So full respect to those who did the marathon. I actually originally had signed up for the marathon. I decided to make that switch after the Austin Marathon because I just wanted a break from training for the full marathon. And again, I really wanted to focus on that time. So thank you to the folks at Jersey City Marathon who did allow me to make that switch. I'll be honest, the process of switching was difficult. They definitely logistically were overwhelmed this year. To be honest, as far as volunteers throughout the race compared to other races like the ones that New York Roadrunners holds, there were not nearly as many. You were probably getting water and they were doing Powerade every other mile compared to every mile. There wasn't even food that was given out throughout the race. So that was definitely a little bit disappointing. And as far as the crowd, that was fairly limited, but it was a rainy day in Jersey. So I didn't really expect it. And again, only 6,500 runners when you're in a smaller race like that, which for New York, that's smaller. It's hard to get a big crowd, but I enjoyed the course. There was definitely a lot of cool runners there. There were even some professionals, I think like 38 professional runners. I think someone actually qualified for the Olympic trials throughout this race. So that was definitely cool. And as far as my result, the race went really well for me. My goal was to break an hour and 25 minutes. I ended up running an hour and 27 minutes and 6 seconds. Now let's note my PR is an hour and 27 minutes flat. So I missed that time by 6 seconds. But what I'm proud about is that every mile that I ran was under 7 minutes. I had to be 6:30 pace to be an hour and 25 minutes. And my average pace, I believe, was 6:38 per mile, which is fairly close if you ask me. And I improved throughout the race as far as my pace. I mean, there was a couple miles, I would say like 8 and 9 that were a little slower, but I started picking it up. That last 5K was the fastest 5K that I had put in throughout the entire race. So I felt really good about that. So yeah, I mean, that's how the race went. And, after the race, I'm feeling good. I'm not too sore. I'm recording this podcast the Wednesday after the race. The race was held on a Sunday. So 3 days after, not feeling too sore, mentally, physically in a good spot and motivated for the next challenge is something that's definitely a great feeling. So you might be curious as far as what is next for me. And I'll be honest, since I started Run Brighter, where I've not had a race either signed up for or in my mind some sort of game plan towards a next race, a next training series. But I do want to open up to the community here today because there is going to be a big life change happening for me in the next month, month and a half, might be longer than that. We're going to have to see. But this will definitely affect my ability to sign up for a next race just due to some uncertainty regarding location. So I've lived in New York City for the last 2 years. It has been an awesome, awesome time living here. I've made so many friends. I've reconnected with people that I grew up with. I've spent some time with family who lives in the area. And in the running space, it's been terrific. I've been a member of a few different running clubs and I've gotten to know a lot of runners and I've gone on some unforgettable runs. I've ran probably 15 to 20 races throughout all of New York, whether we talk about the suburbs, the city, and everywhere in between. We've really made our mark in running in so many different areas, both with races and just also going to different areas on runs. From running on the West Side Highway to going up to beautiful Central Park and being with the city, being with tons of runners from all different walks of life, so many different backgrounds, people I don't know, but I feel connected with while I run, because you don't see this anywhere else really in the world, where you have so many people constantly running together, whether you know them or you don't. Over the last 2 years that I've lived here, I've PR'd in every long distance race that I've competed in, from the 5K to the marathon to everything in between. And living in New York is truly the reason that I was motivated to build Run Brighter. Being someone that used to coach track in college and knowing that I had that itch that I wanted to scratch, and I just truthfully wanted to be a running coach. But how could I do it? Well, I decided, after seeing all the influencers around New York, because I think New York is truthfully the influencer capital, at least of the country and perhaps the world. I figured, why not me? Why not start this page? Why not start Run Brighter and be able to help people? Yeah, maybe it's not middle school and high school runners, but I can help runners who are my age, who are older than me, who are younger than me too. And even though I'm not the coach of their team, I'm the coach of their specific running journey, whether that's been through me giving people running plans or whether that's just me creating content. I've had such an amazing opportunity to do that. And I think being in New York, it's been a great place to build the brand. And I truly think that everyone should, at some point in their life, live in Manhattan. It is truthfully an incredible experience. There are countless things to do here. There is the best food in the world, probably the best people in the world, and you will just simply have the time of your life. But for me, with all the positives that New York has provided, it has taught me exactly what I am looking for in my life. It has really showed me so much in such a short amount of time, to the point where I know what I want, but I have to be in the right place to pursue everything that I want. And that right place is going to be Denver, Colorado. So Run Brighter, it's not my full-time job. I work in the technology space. There are things that I'm working on figuring out regarding my work situation. And so once that is fully figured out, then I will be able to move over to Denver. The full timeline on that is not fully certain. And so once that is determined, I will be able to start looking for places and move. But why Denver, Colorado, and why now? The great thing about Colorado is that, just like New York, there is a huge, huge, huge running community there. It's different, and I have a lot to learn about it. I think a lot of that learning is going to come from living there and being part of it. But I love running in the city and I love living in the city, but it can sometimes be a lot for me. And my favorite place to actually run is in the trails. I love trail running. I love the nature. I love the scenery. I love the hills. I love running on the grass. Running on hard ground constantly, it can be wearing on your feet. And it's also very repetitive here as far as where I typically run. Now, I can, of course, travel to other areas throughout New York, but the trails in Colorado are like no other. The mountains there, the scenery, it is best in class, in my opinion, within a city that is big and booming and growing like Denver. So I really think the work-life balance of living in Denver will be able to support me as a person at a higher level. And it will also be a critical next step for the Run Brighter brand. I view the content opportunities there at this point for the brand and what I want to demonstrate and showcase through my content to be a lot more in my favor compared to New York. In New York, there's a lot of people around, there's a lot of loud noises and disruptions that can occur while trying to create content. And I truly think being in a place that's a little bit more quiet, like Colorado, and again has that scenery, and I can have something like a car or be able to have a drone, things like that will help optimize the quality of content that I'll be able to create. I will also be able to have a larger living space for a lot less than the cost of what New York would be, which I think that's important for me because I spend a lot of time at home editing videos, creating content. And so for someone who spends a lot of time working at home, to be able to have more comfort in my place of home, as well as just have more space to create content, is going to provide more opportunity for more unique content when I'm in the home, as well as out of the home, of course, too. Now, one plan that I do have too is that I plan on creating a podcast studio actually in my apartment. I plan to get a 1-bedroom apartment, and then the living room will be converted into a podcast studio. And I plan to host many in-person episodes. And I'm going to have the full setup from mics to higher quality cameras, everything you can imagine to really make this show as great as possible. If you're watching the video version of this episode, you'll see I have a background on right now with my logo and a couple other pictures. And as I move around my face, it doesn't look good. The quality here is not what I want it to be. You can see the background of my room. And to be honest, I have this background on because I'm just sick of the background of my room. I just don't think it looks aesthetically pleasing for the viewer compared to what I'd like it to be when I move over to Colorado. I'm also very interested in the opportunity to train for and run ultra marathons. Now, I'm not saying that's the next race, but I think living there and finding a community of runners who are into that really excites me. I also talked about the fact that I'll be able to have an apartment that is lower in cost. Living in Denver in general is going to be much lower in cost than New York. For perspective, I pay over $2,500 a month right now for rent, the cost of utilities, food, and all the necessities that I need in New York are crazy. And I'm lucky to have the luxury of working for a company that compensates me nicely, but I don't monetize Run Brighter at all at the moment. So it definitely makes things tight here. And when I want to go ahead and I want to invest in the brand and create better quality content or buy a new piece of equipment for the content or sign up for a raise or buy a new pair of shoes for myself, it makes it a lot more difficult for me to make those purchases. Then if I move there, I lower my cost of living. I truthfully think it will allow me to be able to invest a lot more in myself and in the brand and give you, the listeners and the viewers, a much better experience of the Run Brighter brand moving forward. I also think training in an area that has altitude, it will be a challenge for me 100%, but it will make me a better runner. I truthfully think living there will build me up as a better runner, whether it's building my endurance, building my speed, whatever I choose to train for next, as well as for years to come. Being in an area that is challenging to train in, as well as Denver and Colorado in general, it's just such an outdoorsy place. People on the weekends in New York like to go to bars and restaurants. It's a city surrounded by that. There are a ton of amazing fitness opportunities here. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it's large buildings, it's bars, it's restaurants, is what's in front of your face. Whereas in Colorado, it's really a city of people who enjoy outdoorsy activities, from hiking to camping to skiing to snowboarding, you name it, they have it there. And so for someone like me that I used to be a really big partier, admittedly, I'm losing that passion and that drive for that. Going out to eat for a nice meal, I always love, but they have it there. The food might not be as good, but it'll probably be a lot healthier, at least for me. And so being somewhere that I think will support what I love and what I enjoy more these days is something that I'm excited about. And I see a long future there, a lot more structure in life there. New York, you don't ever have structure here. Things are always changing. Things are challenging here. Things are awesome and amazing too. But you have the best days of your life here, and you can also have some of the worst. It's not an easy place to live. If you can make it here, though, you can make it anywhere. And I truly think I did make it here. I made it what I wanted to make it, and I got out of it what I wanted to grow from it. And just because I'm leaving, that doesn't mean that I won't ever come back, right? You never close the door on anything. but I think that going to Colorado, it's the right thing for me to do right now. And I couldn't be more excited for the experience. Now, one thing I want you to take away from this, because I'm always trying to add value where I can, is maybe you're living somewhere such as New York City, maybe you're living in a small town or somewhere in between. But in life, you ultimately have to make decisions that you think will provide you the most happiness and allow you to really seek out the best life that you think you can live. And so I fully support people leaving the hometown they grew up in, or just because they went somewhere that they thought was going to be amazing and it hasn't reached those expectations, making a move, making an adjustment. And there's no age that is too old to do that too. Just because you're 34 and you've lived in the same place forever, or if you just graduated college, it doesn't make a difference. There's always things to do in different places. It's going to be different, obviously, each city. There's different opportunities, there's different cultures, there's different weather. But what is a city? It's what you connect with, whether it's the people, the things to do. But yeah, I mean, how did I evaluate this move? So I literally took an Excel sheet and I rated each category that I care about in life, whether it was weather, connections, work opportunities, cost of living, activities. There was probably 20 plus categories that I ended up writing down and providing a score to based on the level of importance. I was considering New York City, I was considering Denver, I was considering Austin, and I was even considering South Florida. And when reviewing everything, both Denver and Austin came neck and neck, believe it or not, as far as those two cities that I saw myself spending my next year plus in. And Denver just scored a little bit higher. And there's also another opportunity in Denver that's coming my way that I'm not announcing yet. So stay tuned for that. But that really was a big pivot towards wanting to go there. So don't think that it's weird to use data to analyze your life and make a decision, because ultimately there are things that we don't like on a daily basis about where we live or a relationship we're in, or maybe a race we're training for, or a gym membership that we have. And it's okay to take that data and bring it to life and consider the variables that you can do on the other end and how it could change your life. New York was closed, but like I said, as amazing as it has been to live here, it's a lot for me. I don't view it as a long-term situation. I'm not really interested in the suburbs. I want to ultimately be in a populated city for a long time, but I also hate commuting. So that was a factor too. So I mean, that is what ultimately led to Denver, Colorado. So one thing that I will tell you is over the next 5 to 6 weeks throughout this moving process, I'm going to do my best with the content. Okay. We want to continue growing the brand. We want to continue coming out with high quality content and educating you and telling the stories about running. But we are not going to be training for a race at this point, because I do have to figure out, one, how I'm getting to Denver. Then I have to move there. Then I got to set up an apartment, and then I have to get adjusted to that life. Right. And so moving is a huge process. I will try to make as much content throughout the journey of the move and keep everyone posted once we know when we're moving there and everything like that. But because of that, we are not going to be training for a race at this point. Now, we're not going to stop running, but also I want to make sure that the time that I spend here in New York City is great over the next 6 weeks, in the sense that I'm doing all the things that I want to do here before I move. Now I'll be back to New York plenty to revisit other activities in the future, but I don't want to have the commitment of running a race preventing me from doing certain things and seeing certain people. And also to add to the fact that I'm going to need to go through some motions of moving, finding an apartment, going to Denver, making that trip. But with that said, I will continue to train. I will continue to maintain my running. I will be running probably 4 to 5 days a week, probably minimal amount of speed workouts, just fun runs with friends, with running groups. going to different activities like that while I'm still here and just not even thinking about it, not worrying about my weekly mileage. I'm excited to not really care about that for a little bit. But once I'm out there, my plan is to join a running club to see what the group is training for and to join them on a journey. That journey might be a sub 3 hour marathon. That might be an ultra marathon. That might be a 5K. I don't know yet, but I will be experiencing a lot in the running world once I move there. I'll be doing things that I've never done before. I'll be seeing achievements that I've never seen before. And we're going to be traveling a lot. We're going to be still having our big goal of running a marathon in all 50 states. Going there, that'll help being able to afford some of that travel. Definitely. And then finally, as far as coaching goes, because I do provide fully free custom running plans and provide free running tips and advice for anyone who reaches out to me at all times. I would say that will not be really taking the back burner as much. I really enjoy that. I truthfully think I have a really good workflow with that and that it doesn't take up nearly as much time as it used to. So if you do need a fully free custom running plan, let me know. Or if you have any running tips or advice that's needed, let me know. There could be days where I'm like, hey, I need an extra day or two to get this done because I'm dealing with all this moving stuff. But I don't want to tell you here that that service won't be offered because we will continue to help in that area, no doubt about it. I've told a lot of my close friends and family, if this is the first time that you're hearing this, I hope you're as excited for what's going to happen with the brand and the growth as I am with this change. It's only going to be positives. And I truly know that where we're going to be in a year from now, once we're settled there and everything is adjusted, is going to be really, really massive and big and life changing for the community and for myself too. Because at the end of the day, you have to love yourself. That's important. And you have to love what you're doing and you have to be comfortable and you have to not have stress and be happy. And I know going there will optimize all of that for me. If you're considering a move for reasons X, Y, or Z, maybe it's a fitness related thing, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's to lower your costs or to experience more in life, whatever it is, let me know. I'm happy to help where I can there. I'm not a specific professional in the psychology industry of where someone should live, but I've lived in a couple different places in my life at this point. I mean, I'm 26 years old. I grew up fully in Long Island. I was there for 17 years. I went to college in Ohio, in a town called Athens, Ohio, which was in the middle of nowhere for 4 years, and then lived in Cleveland, Ohio for 3 years. And now I've lived in New York City for 2, and I'm going to Denver. So I've moved around a little bit. All of these moves have happened after my childhood, and every move that I've made, I have not regretted. I feel like any time that I've actually picked up my stuff and I've chose to go to a different place, I've really been happy about where I chose to live. And so just because you're moving does not mean that you're not happy. It just means that you want to try something new and perhaps find even more happiness. So I just want to emphasize that. But if you're not happy, maybe it is because where you're living. And so perhaps moving might not be a bad idea for that reason. But I want to thank you for listening to the episode. For my friends, family, and supporters who are in the New York area, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you for being there for me. Thank you for supporting my brand. Thank you for running with me, for doing races with me, to hanging out with me, to going out to eat with me, to watching my content because it's in an area that you live in, whatever it might be. For my friends that are out in Denver and for my future friends that are living there, I'm excited to connect with you. I'm excited for the journey. I'm excited to run with you. I'm excited to race with you. And for my friends who might not be living in New York City or Denver, thank you for listening and for supporting the brand in general. It means a lot that on a digital scale, we can still have this level of connection and that you're seeing the value from me. And we will continue showcasing that. But that's all I got for this episode today. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, don't forget to run brighter. I'll see you back here real soon. Have a good one.